Hey, what's up, stream keepers, and welcome back to my channel. So thanks for again, all the encouragement. And today I wanted to give you guys a special shout out to Rob and Reed. So they are from ShrimpEnvy, based in the US, and I've been collaborating with them for quite some time. And they are one of the very kind-hearted people, and I would say that they are one of those very genuine, very down-to-earth, and very real people that stream breeders. And also, they do have their own range of products that they create from scratch, and definitely worth to check them out. I will put a link below, and a special shout out to you guys. Thanks for having me and supporting me along the way, and of course all this guidance and advice that you guys have been sharing with me is much greatly appreciated. So thanks for that, and I continue to have that conversations and for 2022 as well. So thank you for that. Okay, so today's topic, what I want to talk to you guys about today is actually something that I've got feedback from, and I wanted to take this opportunity to actually address some of these questions, and I believe that they are part of the building blocks, okay, before the guiding principles. So the building blocks, actually one of them is water parameters, and I'm not going to talk about water parameters today, but what I'm going to discuss today is actually on water changes, and of course water stability. So water changes and water stability. And this is more towards those who have a lot of tanks, and they want to have actually a good method or to actually reduce the time in terms of water changes, because actually water changes takes a lot of time, right? So like for example, if you do it manually, like tank by tank, you siphon the water out, and then you top the water back in, or you do a weekly or a mid-week top up on RO water. That will, all in all, kind of take up a lot of your time. So that is the reason why I get that question. For example, if I have 70 tanks or I have 100 tanks, how do I actually reduce the time taken for both actually water changes and resetting the tank? So actually these are the two major time where you actually being consumed the most, and I wanted to use this opportunity to address that and provide some solutions, and also share with you guys what I personally do in terms of actually trying to continue to breed streams, and spending more time and allocating more time to selection rather than spending more time in water changes. And that's one of the reasons that I actually set up the way I set it up. So my tanks, actually you can see it right here. You can see that I actually have a system where I have the water in and water out. So what that means is that like for example, if I have 4 taps over here, then those are the 4 taps, the 4 water in. Okay, so the input of the water into the tank, right? RO water into the tank, directly into the tank. And then there is one tap which is down right below. That is which is the water out. So it actually uses the same tube that goes in and out. So that is the part that is, I think, most of the people get a bit confused in terms of the water out. Actually, when you do the water out, all you have to do is actually turn the main valve of the water in off, and then you can actually drain the water out. Or usually what I do is that I will drain the water out first, and then I'll put it back in. So the question is, how do I do a mid-week top up? So basically, what I do is that I don't normally do a mid-week top up. So what I do is that I do a weekly water change. So I actually skip the mid-week top up. So what I do is that, for example, if there is a evaporation of, let's say, this much of water, and then what I do is that at the end of the week I will just change a bit more water, so the total water loss is actually this much, right? So when I remove all this water out and I put new water in, and then I immediately remineralize the water directly into the tank. So there has been a lot of discussion. What is the best method? Should I remineralize it outside, inside, or do I do remineralize top up in the midweek, or and so on and so forth? So I think basically at the end of the day, there is no one best way, right? So the shrimps, they are more or less, they are quite hardy, and even the very sensitive ones, they can take that kind of water change. So as long as you don't do a big and drastic like 50% water change or 80% water change. So those are for more sensitive ones. So even for very stable ones that I have, I can easily change 20-30% of the water, and there's not much an issue in terms of directly putting the RO the RO water in, or TDS 0 water in, and then remineralize right in the tank. So what I do is that instead of putting salt directly into the tank, so we do a pre-mix, right? So that is, I think, one of the things that we do a little bit differently. We don't use the salt directly into the tank, so we do a pre-mix, and then we actually use like a liquid remineralizer. So we don't encourage people using salt directly into the tank, but more of using a pre-mix and then put it in the tank. So what do I actually do during my water change? So my water change is fairly simple. I just turn all the out valve or outlet valve on, and then all the water will start to drain. And then after a certain period of time, when the water level is down, then I will just turn off the off valve and then turn on the inlet valve, and then the water goes in. And once it's filled up, I will then have to manually put the remineralizer. So all of this is kind of semi-automated. It is not fully automated because I do not use the float valve for each of the tanks, because if I use the float valve for each of the tank, then I would not be able to actually siphon out the water, or I have to run additional pipings, one in and one out. So I would have two pipes in the tank, two tubes in the tank, with one in and one out. So a lot of the Taiwanese actually do is, what they did is that they have the tank, which we have a bottom, which they drill, and then that's where the water outlet goes, and then they just turn on the valve and the water goes right in. So this is some of the things that I do in terms of what I do in terms of water changes. So it is fairly straightforward for me. I just turn on the valve, turn on the outlet valve, and then after that turn on the inlet valve. So all in all, I would take probably about 15 minutes in terms of the outlet, and then also the input of the tank and remineralizing. So 15 minutes is for all the tanks. I think that's fairly fast, and that would save me a lot of time in terms of having to do a midweek top up or something like that. So another thing is, for example, if let's say you want to skip 1 week of water change, because if the tank doesn't have a lot of streams, like for example, if you have a 40-liter tank or 10-gallon tank, and you only have like 10 streams in there, you can actually do one water change every 2 weeks. So what do you do with the evaporated water, right? Because if 1 week is like that, then 2 weeks it may be that big, so it doubles up. So it can be quite drastic. So in that sense, then what I normally do is that I will just turn on the RO water and then just top it up and fill it up, right? So, and then the next water change, I would just do a regular 20% or 10% or 15%, depending on how many streams are there. If, for example, there are 10, then I'll just do another 5-10% of the water change. So basically, all in all, I would like to reduce the amount of time. The whole idea is to reduce the amount of time in water changes, and spend more time on selection process. So that is what got me into thinking on how to actually have the water outlet using the same inlet valve. So that is something that I have thought through using gravity, and it actually helps me in terms of water changes. So I will change the first tier, all the first tier tanks. So I'll just turn the first tier valve outlet on, and then all the the first row of tanks will start to drain, and then followed by the second row and then the third row. And one of the reasons is because the first row, the second row and third row, the outlet is actually kind of like connected. So for example, if I don't turn off the second row and if I turn on both first and second row, then the first row water will actually travels down to the second row. So that is something that I do not want, right? So that's why I have to change the entire first tier. For example, if I have 2 racks, then I'll change the entire first tier first, because they are independent system, and I can change all the first tier. So for example, if you have like 10 racks with I don't know 120 tanks, right? You can do the entire first tier, and that is a lot of tanks, right? And in one go you can actually change a lot of water out, and then after that once you have that done, you turn it off, and then you top up with RO water directly into the tank. So this actually helps in terms of from a time perspective. So that's, I think, one of the key differences in terms of water changes from my side, and I actually shared this with a few local guys, a few local breeders over here, and they got a little bit shocked when they see the number of the taps that I have, and they are saying, wow, how do you actually do that? So I spent quite some time in explaining in terms of what can be done, and I've been using this system for quite some time, and I've converted all my racks now to this system, and it really helps in terms of time management, right? So I wanted to spend as little time as possible in that sense, so that I can actually focus more on other, allocate more time on other things as well. Because if once you get the process right, then having more tanks, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100 tanks, it does not consume as much time as you require. Because if you have to go one by one in each tank to at least drain the water, even with a motor pump and all that, it could be fast, it could be like every one is 10 seconds, but if you multiply that with a lot of tanks, it still does take up a lot of time. So that is something that I kind of like created that process and that system to ensure that I spend a lot more time on other things. But the exchange for that, the setback, I mean not the setback, but to exchange for that, I cannot be using that the float valve that most of the people use, but I think that's easy. That's something that I can easily give up, because it actually helps me reduce my water changes time drastically. So I reduce at least, in the past I used probably about 30 minutes to 45 minutes in terms of water change. Now I just spend 15 minutes. So it cuts down a lot of time for me. So that's very efficient, I would say. And then the second part of it is actually resetting of tanks, right? We have come a long way, and we have used many methods like permanent UGF, box UGF. We have done quite a lot of methods, and and the thin soil method actually helps in terms of resetting the tank over the years. And one of the reasons is because when we do our reset, we siphon out the entire soil together with the water, and then just draining out the water, and then the soil is being disposed of. So it helps in terms of siphoning out the soil quickly, as is a thin layer. But if you ask me if there's any setbacks, or is there any limitations in terms of thick soil or thin soil, I think that's also a personal preference. There is no one best way. For us, what we do is that it helps save time. I think one of the key things that why we do what we do is because we wanted to save as much time as possible to do the things that matters, right? For example, strategizing in terms of selecting the streams, to actually take a look at the streams and think of what should be the next step, and also key positioning of the tanks and key positioning of the streams in the tank. So that is something that that goes on in a lot of breeders' mind, to ensure that the next generation, there is high probability in getting good results, right? So that is something that we actually focus a lot of time on, and of course doing videos to actually share with you guys all of this information, and hoping that people will actually try to be more encouraged to keep streams and breed streams, even if they do not have a lot of spare time. From what I understand, from a lot of our local hobbies as well, they are telling me that Ben, I really don't have time to keep my streams. So I think having a good process, the end-to-end process, whereby you don't overcommit yourself into the hobby in terms of you having to do this, to do that, to add this, to add that. So I think to keep the hobby as simple as possible, so that you are able to actually enjoy it a lot more than being a slave to it. So that's, I think, one of the things that when people come into the hobby, they are very excited, they are very anxious, and they are very interested in all this, and they put in a lot of effort and time, and eventually sometimes they just burn out and they say that I don't have time to do what I'm doing already. So that is why I wanted to share with you guys, is that I think when I switch over from fish breeding to stream breeding it takes a lot less time compared to the fish breeding, because the streams, fish breeding, I still have to hatch the baby prime streams, and I have to feed them, and if I'm not around, then I'm not able to do that. So in the past, I used to travel a lot for my work, and I still wanted to keep this aquarium hobby alive, and that's the reason why I switched to stream. And one of my goals is to actually create the end-to-end process, whereby I can still keep and breed streams, but I do not have to intervene or interfere too much in the day-to-day activities, and come back once a week to actually do my water change, and then enjoy the hobby. So it took me quite some time, a few years, to actually try a few things, and then eventually I got into this this process, and it actually helps a lot. So with that, I actually talked to some of these breeders. One of them is Gary Brewster. I think he is one of the very less known breeders that actually has very good streams. So he agrees with me as well, in terms of the simplicity in terms of stream breeding, to leave the tank alone, and to only put what is necessary, right? And then do not disturb them, and let the streams do what they do. So I think that is key to the hobby for a long term, right? So if you want to be in this hobby for 20, 30, 40 years, you have a very long time horizon, right? So you do not want to actually be overzealous and then be over anxious to do so many things, and then burn yourself out, and eventually you're saying that this hobby is not for me. But if you ask me, how much time do I actually spend in terms of coming into the stream room and actually taking a look at them? So basically, I don't really spend a lot of time. So on a day-to-day basis, I probably at most take about 5-10 minutes at most, and then over the during my water changes, of course, I will take a little bit more time. So I could actually spend a lot more time, spending time with my family, which is very, very important, and of course doing videos for you guys, and and all that. So I think this is the one big area that I would see that the time is being spent most for most of the breeders, is that during water change, people are trying to tweak the so-called optimum water parameters to actually fill it back to the tank to reduce that fluctuation. So well, fluctuation is always going to be there. It depends on how big the fluctuation is, right? For example, if let's say if I start off with 90 TDS in the tank and I draw the water out and I change the 10% water, and it goes down to, let's say, 80 TDS or even 85 TDS, right? And then when I fill it back up, it goes back to 85, and then I remineralize and it hits back to 87 or 90, right? So that amount of fluctuation, I think that's quite small. I don't foresee any big issues, and if there are issues with the stream, probably the stream genetics, the stream health is already not as strong as it should be, and through natural selection it did not survive, right? But more often than not, I do not have any issues in terms of this method of water changes, and that will help in the long run, right? I'm just thinking, trying to adjust the water, in a large blue pail or a reservoir tank before you put it in is going to take a lot of minute adjustment to maintain that level, because it is very difficult to catch that, to get that equilibrium again. Of course, there are, over time you are able to devise how much TDS is in your reservoir before you put it in, then you get the optimum TDS that you want. However, this will definitely take a lot of experience and time, and of course, additional effort in that sense. Of course, time. So basically what we do is that we just drain the water and then top it with 0 TDS water and then remineralize it. So that will help in terms of speeding up the entire water change process. So yeah, so actually you can see, this is Jake's tank over here, and wanted to share with you guys an update is that you can see that it's only 8 liters, right? It's 8 liters and it's very unstable. In terms of water fluctuation, it's usually very unstable because a small amount of water evaporation, a small amount of water changes actually fluctuate that TDS a lot, and one of the reasons is because of the water volume, right? The smaller it is, the higher the fluctuation. The bigger the water volume, the lesser the fluctuation, or the more stable it is. So as you can see that over the last few weeks, Jake's tank is still doing well. The shrimps are still there, they are still eating very healthily, and then you can actually see that they are actually pulling the food right in under the car. So it looks like the dinosaur trying to pull the prey into the car. So coming back to stability of the tank water, I think one of the key things that we want to take note of is that we do not want to overthink about the water changes, and one of the reasons is because water changes should be kept as simple as possible and as straightforward as possible, because it's something that you're gonna do for a long time, right? And trying to get everything right and equilibrium is going to kind of like burn you out at the end of the day, and trying to keep things simple is one of our motto, or one of our directions when it comes to stream breeding, for many good reasons, right? One of the reasons that I've mentioned is that you can actually spend a lot more time in other things that matters to you, and one of the things is that you can actually also if your significant others is saying that you are spending a lot of your time in terms of your stream hobby, I think water changes is one of the things that actually zaps a lot of time from you. And if you can do it all in 15 minutes or less, I think that will actually help in terms of the time management aspect. And I always encourage breeders, even local breeders over here, to keep continuing what they are doing, to keep breeding what they are breeding. And if there's any ways to actually help to save time, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I can actually share how my water change system actually works. So that you can actually, when you scale it up to 100 tanks, and basically it still will take 15 minutes of your time, because probably maybe a few more additional minutes to walk from one rack to the other rack, but basically it's all kept within that ballpark figure, and it helps a lot in terms of managing your time well. So thank you guys. I think that's all for this episode. So if you like this video, remember to give a thumbs up and subscribe below. Thank you and peace out.